Thank you for the kind introduction. I assume a lot of you know me, but right, for those who don't, I am the leader of the scientific programmers team here at Sano. And among other things, I'm also a representative of CipherNet in Sano. I will be talking about what CipherNet brings to the table in terms of IT support in a second. And it is my pleasure today to present the activities of my team. And I will begin with a very brief introduction and overview, try to explain why we need a scientific programmers team in the first place and what added value this kind of team brings to the actual research teams, which are the at the forefront of the research activities taking place at Sano. I will show some of the opportunities that our team helps exploit in terms of the use of various types of IT resources and development of various types of software artifacts. And then I will give you a quick rundown of some of the projects that we are currently involved in. And like as Marian said, should you have any questions, feel free to type them in on chat or use the Q&A feature, or we can have a live discussion at the end of the presentation, which I hope won't be too long. Okay, so first a brief introduction. Obviously, as you know, Sano is dedicated to advancing research in the area of medical science, medical technologies with heavy use of IT. And that involves a lot of work that relies on cutting-edge computational technologies, use of various types of computer hardware, various types of computer infrastructures for the purposes of actually doing the science. And this in turn means that we need to have a lot of expertise on board here at Sano that enables us to make good use of such tools. So at the start, at the very beginning, when we started thinking about Sano all those years ago, it seemed clear to us that in addition to pure researchers, medical practitioners, doctors, domain scientists, as I like to call them, we also need strong support in terms of IT professionals who would dedicate themselves to supporting the research teams that we have here. And hence, it occurred to us that in addition to those pure research teams that you see here at the bottom of the screen, we also need a separate team of people who are more sort of operate behind the scenes, and by making those computational resources and infrastructures available and making sure that they are properly used in the course of medical research that goes on at Sano. Speaking of computational infrastructures, obviously the elephant in the room here is CipherNet. This is our local supercomputing center, which is located almost next door, like a couple of blocks away from Sano. And we go way back in terms of collaboration between those different institutions. In fact, Sano itself was sort of a brainchild of some of the people who worked at CipherNet, Mario included, myself as well. And to this day, CipherNet provides a lot of the computational muscle that supports the research taking place at Sano. And I would like to dedicate a few words to CipherNet, because we do owe a lot to that organization, both in terms of pure, raw hardware and in terms of logistical support, procedural support, and also being able to exploit the contact networks that CipherNet has developed over the many years of its existence. I think we're like nearing the 45th anniversary right now, or maybe even past that. It's that old. But even though, despite its being a venerable institution, if this is a proper term to refer to a supercomputing center, we try to keep ahead of the curve. And CipherNet is constantly upgrading in its computational infrastructure. Right now, we are sort of moving ahead from having the Prometheus supercomputing cluster at the core of our IT infrastructure. When deployed a couple of years ago, the Prometheus was actually in the, I believe, top 100 on the top 500 list, clearly the fastest supercomputing cluster in Poland. And to this day, some of our research, including the research that goes on at Sano, makes use of the resources provided by Prometheus. But time moves on, and especially in this discipline, we have to keep moving to not fall behind. So these years, CypherNet is rolling out new computational infrastructure. In fact, we just launched Ares, which is like a follow-up to Prometheus. It is a larger computing cluster, more powerful, greater capabilities in terms of CPU and memory. And we are going to be migrating our applications. Some of them have actually already been migrated from Prometheus to Ares. We also have Athena, which is a dedicated cluster that is meant to be used for GPGPU computations. Obviously, GPGPU being having gained popularity in terms of supporting scientific research in the past years. So this is currently in the deployment phase, and we are again going to be ranked fairly high on the top 500 list, and bringing the total computing power deployed at CypherNet to over 10 petaflops. And that's not all, actually, because even though this slide doesn't actually say that, but CypherNet is also a member of international consortia, including the LUMI consortium, which operates one of those Europe's key pre-exascale computational infrastructures. So through our affiliation with CypherNet, we also have the capability to make use of those resources that are located outside of Poland, but which we are entitled to use as members of these international consortia. So in addition to the computational power, the computational resources that CypherNet brings, we also have obtained access to a large variety, actually a huge variety of scientific software. And this slide only lists some very rudimentary examples. The whole list of scientific software packages that are deployed on our HPC resources and can be utilized by our Sano researchers is like 50 pages long or something. So so there is a great big array of computational software packages, which we, through our affiliation with the Nowakowski Computing Center, can make use of, well, essentially free of charge. These resources are provided under the umbrella of the Polish PL Grid infrastructure, which says that any Polish scientist or their international collaborators, which would obviously include everybody at Sano, can make use of those resources free of charge. The only thing we ask for is to acknowledge us in your publications if they are based on work that is done with the use of such resources. So I think it's a win-win situation, right? The center gets its users, and the users are able to obtain those access to this software, which would otherwise be fairly costly to procure on a personal usage basis. Yeah. But okay, these are the opportunities. But in order to be able to meaningfully exploit these opportunities, there is a lot of work that has to be done. And this slide here lists some of the issues that arise with in connection with the availability of these infrastructures and these resources. So first of all, we need to make sure that our scientists working at Sano are actually capable of making use of those resources. Now, computational clusters, HPC infrastructures are not exactly very straightforward to use for a layman, or even for someone who is comfortable running research on their laptop, maybe, but has not heretofore had access to those large-scale infrastructures. So there are certain procedures that must be followed. There are certain pitfalls to avoid. And there are certain steps that need to be taken in order to make sure that these resources are being used effectively and efficiently. And so that's one of the issues that needs to be tackled at the junction of domain science and heavy-duty IT that is provided by our infrastructure providers. We also need to make sure that research work, which is typically iterative in scope and sort of looks back on itself, is conducted in a manner which ensures traceability. That when you obtain a result and maybe use that to author a publication, that we have to make sure that the primary data that is used to support your scientific claims, that in your publication is available and can be verified and can be validated. And finally, there is a measure of work to be done in relation to popularizing the results of your research, enabling the general public to actually take a look at the software, the computations you have performed, maybe try it out from themselves, experiment with your results, experiment with your models, change some parameters and all that. And sometimes this calls for development of customized IT solutions, applications that not just your team members have access to, but a wider society. And all those goals, in order to be achievable, require the support of personnel who have a background in IT, but who also know a thing or two about the actual science. It's a difficult position to occupy. Because, like I said, on the one hand, you need to be really well versed with when it comes to using those infrastructures. On the other hand, you also have to dabble in research a little bit. Any IT specialist working on a system for a client, quote unquote, also has to familiarize themselves with the client's domain, and we are no exception. But we do have a fairly strong background, as you can see here. The distributed computing environments team at CipherNet, of which I'm a member as well, and of which Marian is the head, has been involved in developing customized IT solutions for the purpose of research, mainly in the medical domain, but not only. As you can see here, there are a lot of projects on this list where we provided both the computational power and the software that was used to put this power to use for the purposes of specific research efforts. Now, we started back in 2002. Back then, grid computing was the buzzword of the day. Later on, we evolved to provisioning cloud computational solutions. We actually do have a cloud computational infrastructure at CipherNet, as well as making use of commercial cloud providers for scale-out studies, and in situations where the resources that CipherNet itself provides are not enough. And currently, we are capable of providing access to solutions which exploit the full gamut of HPC approaches to HPC. On the one hand, we have those traditional computational clusters. On the other hand, we work with cloud infrastructures, containerized applications, and all the modern. We also, making forays into serverless architectures and all those modern advances in IT. So over the years, the team has gained experience, and some of the people who originally started work here on these projects are still with us today. But the scientific programmers team at Sano goes beyond this core, and we have actually had the opportunity to recruit talented individuals to assist in the development of specific computational solutions that are sought by the research team leaders here at Sano. Here you can see some of our cases. I hope I won't run afoul of GDPR or anything, but they are all publicly available on our website, so we should be okay. Our modus operandi, if it can be called that, is for each of our team members to be affiliated with typically one, although in some cases it's actually more than one, research team at Sano. So while I am the nominal leader of the scientific programmers team, I'm just a glorified pencil pusher, really. But the actual research work that goes on happens within the context of our research teams. And within those research teams, our members, the members of the scientific programmers team, sort of take orders from the research team leaders, and develop software, develop solutions, and operationalize the hardware that we have available for the benefit of those research teams. Okay, so that's a very brief overview of who we are and what we do. And I would like to devote the rest of this presentation to detailing some of the solutions that we have either developed or are in the process of developing. I guess we don't get as much recognition as the scientists who are at the forefront of the research effort, and that's fine, obviously. Sano is primarily devoted to doing cutting edge science and not necessarily to developing cutting edge IT solutions. But even so, I think it makes every sense to say a few words about what it is that we develop behind the scenes, how we contribute to the success of the research effort in our research teams. So first of all, and this is actually our earliest project. We have been and are still in the process of developing online end user tools for the Jagiellonian University Medical College. This is based on our long-standing collaboration with the bioinformatics and telemedicine department that also goes back many years. And it initially started as a sort of a scientific collaboration, but then it evolved into this kind of a system where they do the science and we do the IT tools in support of the science. And we curate the resources and we expose those tools to the outside world. Make sure that they operate correctly and such. The bioinformatics and telemedicine department conducts research primarily in the area of molecular biology, with a particular focus on protein folding dynamics, and actually the recent focus is on what is known as misfolding diseases. This is a set of pathological conditions that emerge as a result of proteins not folding the way they are supposed to. And that in itself can have a number of causative factors. You can have a genetic mutation in a gene that encodes for a certain protein, and that gives you a different 3D structure or tertiary structure, as it is called. Or you can actually have changes in the external environment in which the protein itself, the protein chain, undergoes folding. And this also has the potential to produce an incorrectly folded structure, even in the absence of any genetic factors. So this is the primary area of research, and the CMUJ team has done a lot of work in that respect, and they authored a lot of publications, and they also try to make this work sort of expose the work that they do by providing open source tools that are available to the community, and we help them deploy those tools and host them and may enable reviewers of publications or any interested party to verify the correctness of the research that is published and maybe, like I said before, experiment with it a little bit. So the first tool that we, as the scientific programmers team, did or deployed, this is actually the first project ever at Sano at the cytochrome, was the HP hydrophobicity calculator. This I won't go into too much of a detail here, because I could probably spend an hour just talking about the science behind the scenes. But the gist of the idea is that this is a tool which interfaces with the PDB being obviously the largest protein database, structure database available online, where you can retrieve any structure, any protein structure that is stored therein, and compute some parameters which are notable from the point of view of this theoretical model that is developed by our medical college colleagues, and depending on the selection you make and the conditions which you simulate, you can either recreate the results that are available in publications, or you can discover new relationships and regularities in those structures. So this is an online tool that we provide as an application. As you can see, it's hosted under this address. You can go there and you can take a look at it. It's there. And that's not all. In addition to purely scientific research, our colleagues at the university also are involved in writing manuals and sort of didactic work. They write handbooks for students of computational biology, and one of those books is actually I personally am involved in. We are on the cusp of publishing a second edition, and of course, being a book, there is a lot of printed text and examples, but the work itself is supplemented by some online tools, again, to enable the reader to experiment a little bit and play around with the models that are published therein. And for this reason, we host some tools, some online tools that have been prepared in collaboration with our colleagues, and they are again available online as for the readers of those manuals and handbooks as a sort of a supplementary material. So this shows you a good, good application of where the scientific programming team can actually come into play and provide added value over the work that our research colleagues are involved in. The next system, which I would like to mention, is the a brain spread tool. This is for predicting, analyzing progression of Alzheimer's disease using an ML model. This is work that is being carried out at the Brain and More Laboratory under the supervision of Alex. We have our members of our team involved in developing this solution from the sort of a UI perspective. The underlying computational model is developed internally by the researcher working at the team, but where we come into play is when it comes to exposing this tool to again, like I said, again, to the outside world as an online application with a very easy to use user interface, hopefully. So this particular project deals with Alzheimer's disease, and I don't know, I suppose many of you are familiar with the issue, but it is a complex phenomenon, and there is still some ongoing discussion whether the amassment of amyloid plaque in brain tissue is actually the symptom of the disease, or maybe its underlying cause. But in any case, it is the measurable effect which is most readily associated with the progression of AD. And in fact, most of the medications and treatment regimens that have been approved for use in AD focus on combating limiting this aggregation of misfolded proteins in brain tissue. So our colleagues at the Brain More Laboratory developed a modeling tool to enable simulation of the progression of the disease based on preliminary PET scans showing which regions of a brain in a particular patient are particularly affected, and then trying to simulate how the disease is going to progress. This makes use of machine learning models and brain maps, showing you where the expected aggregation of amyloids is going to come up at a later date, and what cognitive functions may ultimately be affected, depending on which areas of the brain the disease particularly manifests itself in. So we have developed a nice UI interface visualizing this model. As you can see, you can visualize, like I said, the concentration of misfolded proteins, as well as the predicted follow-up that is returned by this machine learning model, and you can sort of view a specific cross section of the brain and retrieve information for a specific region. You can also display a plot showing how the initial state that is represented by this initial data set for a given scan compares to the outcome of the simulation, and where the differences are particularly pronounced. Again, another tool that we have developed on the basis of a computational model. Usually what we work with are either just executables that run on a cluster maybe, or maybe on somebody's laptop, and what we end up with is an online tool that is sort of wraps this kernel, this computational kernel, and provides the interfaces and exposes the functionality of the given model to the outside world. So this is certainly the case in this particular instance. The next project I would like to present, as it does involve our team rather heavily, including actually myself, is the in silico world collaboration, taking place in the extreme scale data and computing team. And here, yes, there's actually my photo there, but I wouldn't want to neglect the contribution of other team members. So this is actually a project where we have several people involved in. And the gist of the problem is to facilitate in silico clinical trials related to a variety of diseases. As you can see them listed here, this really sort of runs the gamut of medicine. We actually have approximately 20 different use cases in ISW, and many of those are reliant on development and execution of computational models for various aspects of the diseases that they are particularly concerned with simulating and investigating. And in some of the cases, as relates to these models, there is clear need for scale-out studies, for large-scale HPC infrastructure, to be able to run simulations in a reasonable amount of time. And so this involves the need to, first of all, port the models, which are typically designed on a single workstation, to an HPC environment, and to assist in rewriting, perhaps sometimes updating the models in such a way that they can actually make use of this HPC environment and make use of the resources that are provided by it. So ISW does that a lot, and here we are exploiting and actually expanding the platform that we have actually been working on for some time now in the context of other computational research projects called the Model Execution Environment. This is a set of online tools that provides sort of an entry point to the HPC infrastructure that I discussed early on in the introductory section. The user, the medical researcher, may upload input data to a secure storage repository and use that data to actually run simulations directly with the use of the HPC resources that we provide. So, there is no need to sort of interact with, there is no need to directly interact with the batch tools that are typically used to make use of those computational resources, such as, job schedulers and command line interfaces and all that. Obviously, we do provide that as well to quote unquote advanced users. But for the most part, this is not needed, this is not necessary, and it is not very relevant from the point of view of the science that is actually sort of sits atop of this infrastructure. So in the model execution environment, we are expanding it in the context of of the in silico world to enable studies on what we call patient cohorts. This is probably a familiar term to many of you. We have a number, we end up in a situation where you have a number of typically anonymized patient records that correspond to some particular pathological condition, maybe some form of treatment, and we want to process them all using a given set of models, which, as you can see here, are sets of scripts, but they don't necessarily have to be scripts. I mean, Python has sort of become the language of choice for scientific research, but we support essentially any form of any programming language, any programming environment that can be run on our HPC infrastructure, and that's basically most of them, to process the data that we have here in a form of pipelined workflows consisting of steps which communicate with one another by, in terms of one step producing output that is then fed into the following step as input. So we do all that in a coherent manner. And we enable such bulk processing, which is actually a very good match for the capabilities of traditional HPC infrastructures. I mean, computational clusters are very good at running parameter studies, and this is mostly what we are dealing with in the context of this project. So you can create a cohort with ME, you can add your patients to that particular cohort, you can upload input data, and then you can direct the platform to crunch the numbers using the HPC resources. And once you launch your pipeline, you can log out, come back the next day, maybe a couple of days later, because obviously we are talking about large-scale computations, and they sometimes take a long time to process, even with an HPC infrastructure. But this is exactly where we come into play and what we are here for. So that a study that might take you a month to process on a personal computer can be over in just a couple of hours on our infrastructure, and ME, the model execution environment, assists with that. We actually have a variety of organizations registered here. The platform itself goes beyond just the In Silico World project, but we are developing certain features that are specifically intended for use in ISW as part of this infrastructure, and we are porting the computational models. We are assisting the developers of these models in deploying them on HPC, showing them, how it's done, what to perhaps change, what to improve in terms of performance to enable those models to be computed quickly and efficiently, while also using the resources that we have available. As you can see, this is like a preliminary list of some of the use cases. It's actually not all of them that we have here in ISW, and behind each of those is a team of researchers, and typically a set of computational artifacts, source codes, scripts, executables, workflows that we, as part of the In Silico World, are in the process of developing. And I see we have a question in chat, so I will briefly address it. Marek asking, can you say something more about the toolchain you are using and the methodology of how the scientific development are assigned to the project in a dynamic environment? Well, I mean, the environment is perhaps a little less dynamic than it might seem at first. It's not like a round-robin assignment of developers to projects. We typically begin with a leader of a scientific team who comes to us and tells us, okay, they have this particular problem. They need something developed in terms of software, maybe some models deployed on hardware, and they need IT assistance with that. So, and at this point, either there is a member of a team which possesses the relevant expertise, because we do specialize. So it's not like everybody knows everything about all possible infrastructures and hardware resources. So either there is a member of the team who can actually be helpful in fulfilling this particular request, or if not, then we within our budget allocation and so on and so forth, we recruit the necessary an individual who possesses the necessary skills. It's just like any other recruitment. We post job offers and explain what is expected and what the benefits are, and in this way we find candidates for involvement in a particular research project. So hopefully that explains sort of that covers the question about the assignment of team members to research projects. And about the tool chain, well, the code that we develop is uploaded to a centralized repository. We have a GitHub organization for Sano, and within that organization we have a bunch of repositories dedicated to specific research projects. Although this is not mandatory, some research team leaders have their own repositories. For instance, one of the teams is using Azure DevOps rather than Git, and that's fine. I mean, so long as there is accountability and the code is preserved and you can sort of track the work that everybody's doing, that is fine. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, you can ask another one and I'll get back to you. All right. Next, segmentations of vessels and arteries in the human heart. This is an interesting collaboration that involves primarily our colleagues at the University of Sheffield. We have collaborated, I mean the team that eventually became Sano, we have collaborated with USFD for many years in the context of various research projects. And the team in Sheffield has always been sort of interested in developing clinical decision support systems that are based on modeling the operation of the performance and also some anomalies related to the cardiovascular system, with particular focus on the heart. And you can see here are some names of our colleagues here who have been developing those computational models, and they sometimes rely on our humble assistance in sort of working out the IT side of things. we have been deploying cloud-based computational systems for the benefit of these CDSSs and doing some research work in collaboration, and this with them, and this carries on to this day. So we have an ongoing project here handled by Maciek. You can see down here that is devoted to segmentation of the vessels in the human heart. Now, this is based on the observation that there are no generic currently available approaches to segmentation of every major vessel in the cardiac system. On the other hand, such a generic approach would be very useful for the purposes of, like I said, modeling the various conditions and pathologies, and also simulating the outcomes of some interventional procedures which involve the human heart. So we're looking at a scenario where, for instance, a decision has to be made whether a given pathology can be or should be treated pharmacologically, or maybe there is a need for an interventional procedure. Obviously, cardiac procedures do carry a fair bit of risk, so it would be beneficial to be able to simulate the outcomes of those procedures before you actually, grab your scalpels and then go to town. So this is the kind of work that we have been involved in over the years with USFD. And currently, the specific focus is on segmentation of major blood vessels in the human heart, and based on the scans that some of which you can see here. So there are IT approaches that you exploit to leverage to provide this kind of automatic characterizations, and this is the work that we are currently involved in. So as you can see, sometimes we sort of step out of our comfort zone, which is obviously the technical side of things, and sort of get our hands dirty and try to sort of assist with the actual science and the actual research effort that is based on the solutions that we provide. And this is actually one such example. This sometimes results in publications where we wind up on the list of authors. Not very often, but yes, we do have a fair bit of publications that we have co-authored with the actual developers of the computational models or the research side of things. So that's a nice thing. And another similar project which also sort of touches upon this scientific aspect is the project that is currently ongoing in the personal data science team here at Sano. This involves the deriving abstractions that can be applied to data that represents the course of various non-communicable diseases. And this happens in the context of this project that you have can see described here. We basically the goal here, and this is the research goal. The goal is to develop an AI methodology that enables useful decision making and simulations on basis of the raw data. Now, it goes without saying that non-communicable diseases are an important societal problem. There are a few arguments to that effect here on this slide. And so the research work that is being done in this area has a clear impact on the state of the society and public health in general. So you want to be able to utilize techniques from adaptive systems to model the progression of some of those diseases. We have 5, I believe, different use cases here. And this involves integrating various data that comes from various medical information systems, and ensuring that this data can be properly, classified. That you have an abstraction that is derived from on the basis of these data sets to enable useful decision making in an automatic manner. Also, primary data often suffers from not being particularly, complete or maybe up to date. You sometimes need to clean it up or process it before it is useful for any as input for any machine learning approach. So this project also deals with that. Yeah. And Well, this is ongoing. Our colleague, as you saw here, Lauren, is involved in developing the computational artifacts and the computational infrastructure that is used to process, store this data, and to run the classifiers and manage the results of this particular research effort. There's some ongoing work that is taking place on the, like I said, on the IT side of things. So that's another thing. Then we have Campbell, which is a large manually curated database of bioactive molecules with potential drug-like properties, and it's a treasure trove in the drug discovery design or drug design process, but it's not very straightforward to use, unfortunately. So the problem that arises here in the context of the clinical data science team is to making efficient use of this database in support of the research on drug discovery that goes on at that team. And we have Adam here, who is working on developing specific interfaces for Campbell for the purposes of the research that goes on at the team. Now, normally, the source here is an SQL database that is imported. Campbell occasionally publishes like snapshots of their data set, which you can freely download and retrieve. These are fairly large files, so they are kind of sort of unwieldy to work with on your personal computer, but we have a virtual machine in place where we upload the contents of the database and we expose the APIs from that system to the applications and to the researchers who are part of the clinical data science team. And this requires us to develop a set of APIs. So because first, hardly anybody writes good SQL nowadays. It's people need more agile technologies, and so we try to encapsulate this functionality by providing a set of interfaces with Python using the FastAPI library, and this is something that we help with. So basically, trying to address the complexity of the underlying data model and design queries which not only retrieve the data that the researchers are interested in, but as you can see, these queries can be a mouthful sometimes. This is just one example, but also do it in an efficient manner, addressing performance issues, things like N+1 query problems that emerge in this kind of application scenario. Basically provided customized APIs for the research work that goes on in this particular team, and also some rudimentary UI interfaces that can be exploited and interacted with by the domain scientist without having to actually write SQL. So yeah, that's the work that goes on here in this particular context. And Ahmed is that's right, is quite right to point out that in addition to Adam, I should also acknowledge Alicja in Polish, who is a member of his team, and she is intimately involved in the development of this particular set of interfaces as well. Okay. And finally, we have CAMEL, which is a project that's a fairly large undertaking. Set of data quality registers, the brainchild of Professor Nowakowski, who you can see here as the head here. And the idea in this particular project, you may have heard about it already, but if not, then the idea is to develop and popularize the concept of health quality registers or quality registers in healthcare. What are quality registers useful for? Well, these are essentially repositories of data that describes the effectiveness of medical care or healthcare in the context of specific diseases, specific interventional procedures, specific treatment regimens. Basically, what we want to know is whether the healthcare that we are providing to patients, as part of the standard practices at medical institutions, is actually doing its job well, and whether there is room for improvement. And in order to do that, we need to be able to have long-term monitoring of the outcomes of specific cases and specific procedures to be able to draw useful decisions. And there are countries in the world where quality registers are far more advanced than in Poland, but we are trying to catch up. We are actually basing our work on some of the quality registers that are being developed, are in place in Sweden at our collaborating institutions there. We have obtained their help in securing the data models that are used to drive their quality registers, and we are adapting them to the specific situations here that we have in Poland. And this is done on a sort of a proof of concept basis at 3 places. One of them being the Karowa Hospital in Warsaw, and this is through the work of our colleague here, Szymon, as you can see down here. Now, the Karowa Hospital is a clinic that specializes in neonatology. So we have deploying a neonatal quality register there that will provide long-term validation and monitoring of the quality of the medical care that is being provided there. And we also have ongoing collaboration with the University Hospital in Krakow, which you can see down here. This is among the largest and perhaps most modern medical care facilities currently in Poland. So we are particularly lucky to be able to interact with them and then have this kind of collaboration. And over there, we are involved with the work of 2 departments, angiology and pulmonology. And these also provide us with the opportunity to try and test our solutions there. But in order to be able to realize this vision of having quality registers that provide data for decision support, for monitoring, even for policy making, there is a lot of implementation work that needs to take place, again, sort of behind the scenes. And this is a situation where our members of our team have involved at every layer of this technology stack, from the actual data storage facilities and data models, through middleware facilities, that is, interfaces and workflow designers, and then monitoring tools and visualization tools, all the way to end user interfaces. And we have a couple of those, in fact. So there is a different set of user interfaces envisioned for medical practitioners in order to be able to easily feed the data into our registry. Normally, a doctor, when you go to a clinic or when you see a physician, they will type in some results of your test into their computer, and that gets fed into the whatever information system they have behind the scenes. But we also want to be able to export such data to the quality register to, first of all, not force the physician or the practitioner to have to use 2 different systems at the same time, but also to make sure that that the data is not lost, that we actually have access to it, and now we can amass a critical mass of, if it can so be called, of input data over a period of time to enable this reasoning and simulation and decision-making processes to go on. So, and properly designed UI is a crucial part of that. And we are developing a mobile application, as you can see. So that's the one thing. Behind the scenes, there is a large set of computational components here grouped under the name Abalietas, which is capable of integrating those various types of data sources and also the various types of input source streams or external UI components and analytics packages to make this a coherent platform rather than just like a disjoint set of tools and services. So this is a fairly large ongoing project that is currently being taken care of at Sano, and we are intimately involved in its development on the, like I said, on the IT side. All right, so That's a very short summary of the work, and this is by no means exhaustive. I mean, there is other work that also takes place, but I don't want to, explain every little detail and every little side project that we are dabbling in. Suffice to say that there is more than meets the eye here, and we are constantly on the lookout for research efforts and research initiatives that we can assist with and be a part of. So we are also involved in authoring, project descriptions and grant applications and work plans. We have a stake in that. And since, well, obviously, as I've said, being part of a team such as this does, in order to be part of a team such as this, you not only have to be an IT expert, but you also have to have a little bit of interest in the medical side of things, the actual science. It perhaps is not surprising that some of our members go on to defend their PhDs and pursue an academic career, and that's actually a good thing, because that puts us in a situation where we have those full-fledged scientists working for our research teams, but they are also by virtue of their background and of their involvement in this team, they are also capable of handling and properly utilizing the computational resources that we provide, and that sort of builds expertise and builds experience that can be then exploited for further research undertakings. You can read more about our team at this link. So this gives you a set of our short resumes and tells you what each of our members is involved in doing at the present time. And that's actually all I have for today. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions you might have.